Okay, moving on to section 2. Now this one I really like because it really will assess how well you understand what we're learning, because it doesn't just say conjugate in the subjunctive. We actually have to figure out whether we're using the subjunctive, the indicative, or if we might need to use the infinitive for each of these. So this is going to be a little tricky to go through because we have a word bank with our options that are going to be stuck up top here. And as we scroll down, you'll see there's still a bit to go through when we won't be able to see the bank. But let's give it a whirl. So first off, we got Tomás, es la primera vez que viajas a otro país. You know, is it the first time that you're traveling to another country? Sí, señor Rivas, y tengo muchas ganas de ir. More or less, he's really excited. I feel like I'm really excited to go. I tengo muchas ganas is like I feel like doing this, but having ganas is just having that real strong desire to get something, you know, to do this. So you know, I'm looking forward to going. Ya pagué el depósito para estudiar en Colón. El curso comienza el 20 de julio. Hace calor ya en julio. So he already paid his deposit to study there. It starts on the 20th. And he's asking if it's hot there. Sí, hace mucho calor. Te sugiero que. Now we've got our first little bit of information that we need to pay attention to. Te sugiero que gives us actually a lot of information. One is it's sugiero, I suggest. That is a verb of influence. So that should be, you know, telling you that you might need to use a subjunctive here because we've got a verb of influence. But what's the other part that you need in order for you to use a subjunctive? You need a change in subject. So we can see from the O ending here, this is the yo form, I suggest. And actually, because being this is a verb of communication, we oftentimes will have an indirect object pronoun before it. So I suggest to you. And so what's going to finish here? What's going to finish or start our second clause, I suggest to you, is going to be tú. We're not going to write down tú, but we're going to write down the to form of the verb given, or we actually have to figure out which verb goes here. So yeah, it's really hot. I suggest that you do something. And again, so we've got te here telling us what our subject is. Now, are you thinking we're going to use the subjunctive here? We've got a verb of influence, which is in the indicative. We've got yo form here, and it's suggesting to you, which means that we're going to start our second clause with the to form. So we have a change in subject. Verb of influence, change in subject. Yes, we're going to use the subjunctive. So now let's figure out which verb we're going to use. What makes sense here to use? You know, to give advice, to counsel, to know, to translate, to learn, to do or to make, to visit, to attend, or to wear. Now we are talking about ropa ligera, so lightweight clothing. So this is the verb you should be using. Te sugiero que lleves ropa ligera. Pantalones cortos, camisetas, zapatos de tenis. Ok, let's move on. Y las clases van a ser muy difíciles. No hablo español muy bien. And the classes, are they going to be really difficult? I don't speak Spanish very well. Bueno, now we've got a blank here. And te here. So we can see that we've got an indirect object pronoun with this blank. We're going to put a verb in here. We just got to figure out which verb goes in there. And then how are we going to form that verb? So, bueno, te blank que estudies. Now notice here, this is subjunctive. So if this is in the subjunctive, according to the to form, that means we would have to have had a verb of influence here in the indicative in a different subject than the to form. And I am going to assume that this should be in the yo form because of, you know, how the conversation is going. He's giving advice. And so I kind of already spoiled it right there by saying he's giving advice. We go back here and look at our options. You know, very first option here is the verb aconsejar, which is to counsel or to give advice. So that's the verb I would use. And then how do we conjugate it? Aconsejar. Again, this is, well, I'm something to you that you study, or something to you that you study. And again, as I said, probably assuming this is the yo form, right? That sounds right, doesn't it? To say, bueno, te aconsejo que estudies. I'm advising you to study. Because he says he doesn't speak Spanish very well, so I'm advising you to study. Aconsejo. It's from aconsejar. Drop the AR, add the O because we're in the yo form. And again, this is in the indicative because this verb of influence is in the indicative that tells us to use the subjunctive later on. All right, speaking of that, here's the next form. Te pido, okay. Te pido, I'm asking you, I'm asking, there's a verb of influence, and I'm asking you, I'm once asking, you're the one that's going to do something. So I'm asking you to do something to all of your classes. You're going to do something to all of your classes. What are you going to do for your classes? You are going to know your classes, translate your classes, learn your classes, make your classes, visit your classes, maybe, attend your classes, or wear your classes. Okay, that's, I think we should be thinking asistir. You should attend your classes. And if I'm asking you to attend your classes, then we will use asistir. In which subject should we use it in? It should be the to form. We know that because of the te pido, okay, and the context of the conversation. So it's asistir is our verb. Now we're conjugating this in the subjunctive because verb of influence, change in subject. So let's go to the yo form, asisto, and drop the O, opposite ending, and S, asistas. Asistas todas tus clases. Pero aparte de las clases, hay otras cosas que puedes hacer para mejorar tu español. Como siempre les digo a los estudiantes, prohíbo que, prohíbo. So we've got another verb of influence. So I forbid you to do this. I prohibit you to do this. Prohibit, what is he prohibiting? He is prohibiting something from English to Spanish. Trata de pensar en el idioma, ¿sabe? Okay, so I'm forbidding you from doing this from English to Spanish. Let's go look at our word bank. Aconsejar, conocer, traducir, aprender. Which of these verbs do you think would work here? And hopefully you're thinking traducir, you need to translate. So he's saying, you know, I don't want you translating from English to Spanish. Just try to think in the language. ¿Sabes? You know? Okay, so prohíbo que traducir was our verb. Traducir is our verb. Now we need to conjugate that, right? So we got a verb of influence. We have the yo form, and he wants this person not to translate. So we've got a change in subject. So yo form, verb of influence, new subject. So we definitely need the subjunctive. And what's the yo form of traducir? Es traduzco, así. Elimina la O y agrega as, así, traduzcas. Del inglés al español. All right, let's move on. Está bien. También deseo. Okay, we've got a verb of wish or desire, which is also goes under that umbrella term of influence. So I also wish más expresiones coloquiales. So I want to learn or know, or I'm not sure. Let's see, we'll look at some of our options. But I wish to do this, or I hope to do this, I desire to do this with more colloquial expressions. What should I do? And so let's look at some of our options. So it makes sense here to go with wishing something with more colloquial expressions. So this would be, we've got aconsejar, conocer, traducir, aprender, hacer, visitar, asistir, llevar. So this person wants to, I guess, know how to say different things, different types of expressions, sort of like slang or the language of the area. What do you think they'd have to do? You know, I think they would desire or wish to learn these. All right, so let's look down. Cinco dice, that I wish. Who is wishing in this sentence? It's deseo. That is the yo form. So yo is wishing this. Who is the one that wants to learn it? It's the same person. Yo. So do we just conjugate in the yo form then of aprender? Go to the yo form. Is that what we would do? Hopefully you're thinking that looks wrong, because it is wrong. Remember, if we don't have a change in subject, even with a verb of influence or will or desire, if you don't have a change of subject, you are going to use the infinitive. Keep it as is. So, también deseo aprender. And then he asks, what should I do? Y para eso te recomiendo que. Recomiendo, that's I recommend. That's a verb of influence. And to you, so we're going to have a verb of influence, change in subject. So hopefully you're thinking automatically that we're going to use the subjunctive here. We just have to figure out which verb. So I'm trying to something Panamanian friends. As a panameño, una persona de Panamá. Entonces, un amigo de Panamá o unos amigos de Panamá son amigos panameños. So let's look. So I'm recommending you something Panamanian friends, and we've got, advising, knowing. Oh, that could be right. Conocer does mean, it can mean to meet. Yeah, so maybe that would make sense. Or translate. I don't want to translate my Panamanian friends. Learn, make. Okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? To say, hacer, make friends. Para eso te recomiendo que. So that's why I'm recommending you make Panamanian friends. Make friends. Yeah, I think that actually makes a lot of sense. So what's our conjugation going to be? We're going to use the verb hacer, and we're going to change it. This is the subjunctive in the to form. We know it's the to form because te recomiendo. Change it to the to form. So you go to the yo, elimina la o, agrega así. Bueno, tenemos hagas. Ellos te pueden ayudar con tu español y además mostrarte cosas interesantes de la cultura panameña. Y si quiero viajar a otras ciudades, es mejor viajar los fines de semana para no perder clases. Te ruego, so I'm begging you, that you something cities, como David. So I'm begging that you. All right. So let's see. Let's take a peek at these verbs. Which one? I want you to something. I'm begging you to blank cities. What do you think that would be? In my opinion, I think there are two that make sense. Two that make pretty much equal sense. The verbs I'm thinking of are with conocer and visitar. Now, conocer might not seem like the obvious choice, but it really does mean to, know places and sort of like go there. Quiero conocer David algún día, and I want to know that city someday. So, quiero conocer, I want to get to know it. I want to get familiar with it. But a lot of times it kind of translates as like, I want to go there someday. And in this context, it was, I'm begging you to, to go to places, go to cities like David in Panama. I'm begging you to go there. I'm begging you to visit there. So I think either one will probably end up being correct. Let's try it out. Let's go with, let's go with conocer. So I'm begging you to know or to visit, to get to, to go to this place. So conocer, and I'm begging you. We got a verb of influence, and it's to you. So we went from the yo form to the to form. So we have a change in subject with a verb of influence. Let's go to the yo form here, conocer, to make conozco, because that's how you start off our subjunctive conjugation. And we add the appropriate endings, conozcas. Te ruego que conozcas ciudades como David. All right, I think we're on our last one here. Yep. Okay, so ¿Por qué insiste en que yo, the Joe is given here to let you know that we've got the what the subject is because it was a little ambiguous. So why do you insist that I go to David, more or less, right? Why do you insist that I visit David? But insistir, it's insiste, it's in the indicative here, telling us, or it's giving us a verb of influence, insisting, and insiste. This is conjugated in the usted form because he's talking to Senor Rivas. So we have usted here, and then we're going to finish with the yo. So verb of influence with a change in subject. So we're definitely using subjunctive. And thus we use conozcas here. Let's use visitar this time. So now we've used each of our verbs. And visitar, well, we know we have to conjugate subjunctive because we have all the criteria for it. So let's conjugate that in the yo form. Visite David. And I'm not going to check it just yet, but I promise they're all correct.